Ashley. There's Katie, and Ashley should be joining in a second. Just got off the phone with her. So I'd say let's get started, and I'll turn it over to you to just go over the objectives and approvals of agenda and minutes and summary.
All right, good morning, everybody. Good to see you. I'm sorry we're in little boxes. It doesn't quite feel the same, but glad to be here. Let's see, I'm calling the meeting in order, excuse me. And today we're here to review the public comments and suggested responses for the draft River Basin plan. And coming out of the meeting that we held here in the upstate where the public came in and there were some questions about what we might be able to do to help them, I asked to have a discussion of the future role of us and our activities and kind of how we're going to operate. So can I have a motion to approve our agenda?
I'll move.
Tom, did you get the first and the second?
I got the first.
Mark, were you a second, I think?
I'll be the second.
All right, very good.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. Any opposed? All right, I guess the motion passes. We also got the March 2nd meeting minutes and summary attached to Tom's email. Is there any comments? Do I have a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Tom, did you get those?
Mm-hmm.
All right, sorry, it's hard with the flashing boxes. All right, very good, all approved. Any, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Any opposed?
Aye.
Very good, that motion passes as well. I'm going to turn it over as usual over to John and or Ashley for any announcements that we have related to this meeting and otherwise.
Yeah, and Jill, you can help me with this announcement. Just a quick summary of the Water SC meetings in May. There was a presentation by Rob Devlin on interbasin transfers and a little bit of a discussion on multi-state water management considerations, including Georgia and North Carolina. That was followed by Jimmy Bagley, the chair of the Catawba Water Management Group, who kind of gave a summary of the history of that group and some of their success and some of their activities that they've been working on, including the development of their integrated water resources plan, which is kind of their river basin plan. Basically, that's due to be finished near the end of the year. And then there's a panel discussion from a number of Council of Government folks, kind of over in the Santee and Midlands area, Santee Lynch's COG, Catawba Regional COG, Central Midlands COG. And they talked about a number of things, including, economic development. Jill, anything else that you remember that came out of that discussion? It's worth mentioning.
No, I guess my biggest, it was the interbasin transfers that really spurred on a lot of conversation. It educated quite a few people in the meeting. Remember, this Water SC group isn't necessarily full of people that are water resource management experts. And I think this conversation triggered the most, this topic triggered the most conversation of all the meetings coming out of the audience. Jimmy Bagley's presentation was great for the water management group. We did find that they're proposing that theirs will be finished in November, along with the what's that last one? Is it this that last? Yes, thank you. The Santee, with the timeline of the Water SC to have a final statewide plan by December, and having two of the basins not have their plans done until about that time is a little bit concerning for a couple of us on this group, but we'll deal with that as it comes along. And this June 19 meeting should be really interesting if any of you are available to attend. It is River Basin Council chairs and their co-chairs talking about the process, how it worked, how it didn't work, some of their feedback in regards to their recommendations and what have you. And that's coming up just next week.
Yep. Next
In
Thursday.
Columbia. There's no location here. Maybe we can share the time and date with the group as a whole.
Yeah, Joe Kuhn, I don't know the location. Do you know where that's gonna be?
I'm looking that up right now, but I'm pretty sure it's at Stone River
Okay.
in
that
Columbia.
sounds right. Yep. And it's 1 o'clock.
They all start at 1 o'clock and go to about 4:30 or 5.
Yeah, this is Stone River, the 121 Alexander Road,
Yes.
121 Alexander Road in West Columbia. Is that the Girl Scout one we've been going
No,
to?
that's just over the Gervais Street Bridge. You hang a left right there, and there's the West Columbia Amphitheater. It's the building right next to it.
All right. One other news item that I just saw on Monday, and Alan Stewart's on. Alan might be able to expand on it just a little bit. When we exchanged emails this morning, though, Alan confessed to not having a lot of information to pass along, but there was an announcement on Monday about a proposed new natural gas plant just south of Anderson in Anderson County. The next slide, I've just grabbed some of the bullet points that were in the news release. Duke does have a website if you want to go to that includes a map of the proposed facility and some additional information. The one thing that I did note and Alan confirmed is that they're looking to reduce the need for large amounts of water at this plant. So that's about all I can offer on it. Alan, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
I do not, John. This announcement just came out, as you pointed out. So there hasn't been a whole lot of other information, at least, disseminated internally. But, any information that comes out, I'll be happy to share with the collective RBC, relative to water use or anything like that.
Sure, sounds good. Okay. And this actually ties in nicely with one of the comments and responses we're going to talk about in a minute, which had to do with projecting demands for both Georgia and South Carolina energy needs. So we'll get to that. Any questions about this item of the RBC? Nope.
I have a question to Alan.
Sure.
Is this a combined cycle plant? What is the design of this thing?
I believe it is combined cycle, John, but I can't swear to it. I think that's you, John.
Okay, I'll talk to you. I'll email you about it.
Yeah, I'll share any information that I can find relative to, quote the design. So,
Okay.
There's a website, which I'm sharing on the screen now, that has a little more information, including a proposed timeline. But I did see somewhere where there's, and I would suggest you reach out to Alan directly, but yeah, there's a spot on here where you can submit questions or comments or call if you have additional questions. But okay, no more news items unless any of the RBC members have something they want to mention or bring up.
I do, John. Don Todd here.
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Hi, I spoke with the chairman of the McCormick County Council. He was sitting next to me during the public meeting. He didn't express it very well or very much in the meeting, but he expressed a concern to me about boating on the lakes and the fact that the lakes themselves provide a lot of food for a lot of low-income people, especially in the McCormick area. And that is something that I didn't represent to you as a boating enthusiast and a person, a representative on the council, but it was kind of new to me. And I don't know how much of it we have in the Hartwell and the other lakes, but I do know that when the lake is low, that people can't get to the lakes to fish. And sometimes the fishing itself is a substantial form of sustenance for those folks. And it's a consideration that I hadn't thought of at all. And so what I'm doing is bringing it to council or bringing it to the group and just asking if it's worth considering, if it's worth mentioning. Like I said, it's a latecomer. It's brand new to me. Maybe it goes in the next round. I don't know how it works, but it's of some concern that people would be deprived of food during the low lake times, and not just deprived of entertainment by boating. It's a little bit more serious. So I thought I'd bring that to council and see if anybody had comment about it or wanted to say anything about it.
Any council members want to offer any thoughts on that?
I don't have a lot, but most of the local fishermen actually don't fish off a boat. They fish off the shore.
Okay.
Since I forget, it's over 95% or something of the Lake Thurman, you can walk on the shoreline. So if you get lower water, a lot of these inlets and whatnot are dry, and it's difficult for them sometimes to get where they would fish.
Okay, so it may not be a boating issue so much as a shore issue, but when the lake is low, it's hard to
Yeah,
get to the water
Yeah,
itself.
when it's you can see a lot of the pickup trucks and whatnot, cars parked along the various roads. And that's where most of the local fishermen, now, some of them have boats, but most of them don't. They fish off the shore.
Right. Well, Harry, I don't know that, like I said, I don't have, what I tried to do is put some numbers around lost capital use for the boats that can't get in the water and all those kinds of things. So I wiggled my pencil over a bunch of that stuff when I was looking at boating impacts and so forth. And the Corps has reports out about the small businesses around the lakes that are affected when they're low and so forth. So I looked at that and I couldn't find numbers that really measured up to most of the numbers that we're looking at for water shortages here and there and whatnot. But this is something that's a kind of a different kettle of fish. It may be too late to add it to the report as a line item or something that we didn't look at it. Maybe we should next time, something like that. But I thought like I said, bring it to council. I appreciate your comment, Harry, and I'll leave it to council about whether they want to do such a thing as include it as a part of the report, or perhaps, John, it's just too late to do so.
I don't know that it would be too late. We're happy to add in a statement or a recognition that fishing and sustenance and fishing has been recognized as important and can be impacted during drought if the RBC thinks that's appropriate, just to acknowledge it. There's probably a couple of different places we could add that in.
Then I would recommend that we do that if it's possible, unless someone has objection, of course.
Hey, John.
Yes.
Scott, did the councilman submit a formal comment, or is it just something?
I don't. That's the problem. I don't believe he did.
Okay.
He was an older gentleman, and I think it was just a personal conversation between the two of us. And it seemed that he wanted to make a comment, but he didn't for some reason. And I don't know the motivations behind everything, but he did comment on that, and to me just directly, and it happened as a coincidence that I was looking at boating as a thing that I represented on the council. So I did note it to him and said I didn't promise to bring it to council, but I decided that I would.
If everybody, this is Mark, if everybody's okay with it, I would offer that I could have a conversation with Councilman Jennings, and
Great.
and if he wants to formulate a comment, that he can send it through me, that I can get to the group.
Jill, are you?
Fine.
Yes, that's great.
I'm okay with that. That's
Yeah, I'll
great.
just say that in the 4 years I've been working with him, and we've talked about all things McCormick County, I've never heard him make that comment that low water would mean a sustenance problem for folks. But I'll be glad to clarify that comment with him.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So we're happy once we get the comment to include it in the comments and responses, and if that spurs us to just add a statement somewhere in the report acknowledging that that's another use of the lakes and could be impacted during drought. Happy to do that.
Thank you.
There is some fish advisory warnings too for certain natural pollutants about how much fish you can eat also. But
Yeah,
I
I
think it's a good idea for Mark to have a chat with
Yeah.
Jennings.
Harry, I was thinking about those fish advisories too. I don't know the specifics on all of them, but I think if we're gonna include a comment about, low water conditions potentially impacting people's ability to gather food, we probably ought to reference any fish advisories from DNR or DES. Like we had on, I know one of the arms of Lake Hartwell, they had, restrictions on eating fish out of there because of PCB.
Right.
I don't know if that's still active or not, but I know it was a thing at some point.
There was some, I think, naturally occurring mercury or something. I'd have to go back. It's been a while since I looked at the detailed advisories.
I think I think it was Sangamo problem.
Thurman.
It was an old Sangamo problem that you're
Yeah, that's
talking
where the
about.
PCB problem came from on Hartwell, was Sangamo.
So maybe, we, not, the reason I didn't bring that forth was because we're not considering quality exactly right now, but yeah, I agree that it does spill over into fishing very heavily.
Okay. All right, thank you, Don. Any other RBC comments before we move into public and nature?
I
Yeah.
have one, and honestly, I completely apologize. I forgot about this. It came to mind during the public meeting as I was presenting. I was looking at my slide. Excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold. I was looking at my slide and I read it and then I said it and I said, is this really what we recommended? And I meant to come back and look at it afterwards and I didn't. And this has just spurred that on. So honestly, it was a slide that I had under the recommendations. That the South Carolina Surface Water Withdrawal Permitting Use and Reporting Act should allow for reasonable use criteria to be applied to all new surface water withdrawals like those that currently exist for groundwater withdrawals. And I paused at the word new. And maybe I'm misunderstanding. However, one, I thought that, and then I went back to the report, which kind of clarifies and it has more language to what we were proposing. And I still had a moment to pause. It seems to address agriculture only for surface water withdrawals. It has the 3 bullets that has the existing non-ag surface withdrawals, the new or expanding non-agricultural, and the agricultural. And I might be reading it wrong, but it seems that our recommendation is something that's already in existence with bullet number 2. And I want to make sure that's what we were truly recommending, because I would have dropped the word new and left it to all surface water withdrawals. And I didn't want to raise that during the public meeting and have this big discussion in front of everybody about what we actually intended. And maybe I completely misunderstand, but that left me scratching my head a little bit.
The conversation revolved around, we had a pretty detailed conversation about whether or not the new got included. And I think I recall us making that be pretty clear, and I'd have to go back and look myself. I ain't got the notes in front of me right now.
Yeah, I feel like Scott Willett maybe that suggested the word new, and he was kind of, his feelings were pretty strong about including the word new in there. So,
and I wish he was here, because I brought it up during the meeting and he said, oh yes, no, if that's what it says, that's it. We need to correct that. Like I said, I could completely drop the ball between now and then. And of course, he's not on the meeting. So I don't know if we have to kick that to when he has a chance to discuss. Let's see, where's my, because isn't that already required, that new, because it says in bullet 2, must demonstrate the requested water withdrawal meets the need criteria for reasonable use. So I'm confused about what our recommendation is doing.
I'll have to go back and look at the language, but Leanne chime in, but no, right now, agricultural registrations don't have to demonstrate for surface water withdrawals reasonable use.
That is correct.
So I think the distinction between when we added new, Scott was just saying, well, we're not suggesting that it be applied to everybody that has an existing registration. It's just for these new registrations. Moving forward, that reasonable use should be considered, allowed to be considered for issuing new agricultural registrations. Like it is for groundwater registrations in the coastal plain, and like it is for permits.
Can we expand this dialogue into when I can clarify that? Is that all right?
With Scott, yeah.
Kind of
I think
similar to what we're
that's
doing with the gentleman from McCormick?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
And I apologize for not doing that between then and now. I've had all the time in the world.
That's okay. I think Scott's at the ACE conference this week, but he may be back at the end of the week or early next week, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, it'd be such a small component. Agriculture just keeps getting that target on their back. We need to run smaller tractors.
Yeah, well, that's one of the reasons why I paused. I really, like I said, I have a little bit of a different outlook on that. And like I said, I might be in the minority, but I would probably drop the word new. That's kind of where I stand. I know some people on the on this committee would maybe debate otherwise. So I want to make sure if we have this dialogue that everybody has a chance to participate. And I appreciate that, Mac.
Just out of curiosity, could John possibly throw that up on the screen, that slide from our previous meeting, so we can see exactly what you're talking about?
Yeah, bear with me 1 second. Let me see if I can grab the public meeting slides.
Yeah, and I've got them both up. I don't know if I can, if it's quicker for me to share, but yeah, it was the public meeting slide, and then I was comparing it to what's in our report for that particular recommendation.
No, go ahead. I think you can share it. Let me stop my share, and you should be able. Tom, can she share, or am I just only sharing because I'm a co-host?
No, everybody can share it, but one at a time, please.
Okay. All right, Jill, feel free to share your screen.
I had to request to share. I'm not sure how that works. I've never had to. Multiple presentations can share. Okay, let's see here. Full draft. Okay, this was the slide that I was presenting off of. Can you all see that?
It's coming up.
Yeah,
Now we can.
we got it.
Okay, so it's the very first one. And I could probably let me not do this. Hold on. It says the same thing as this one. So let's go ahead and show you this one instead. My apologies. Let's see here. Share. Plan. Is this the plan? Full plan. No, that's the plan. Share. All right. Can you see this now?
Yes.
Okay. So that bullet's the same as the first one that I was reading during the presentation. And then the bullets explain it.
Yeah, the second bullet's for non-agricultural surface water draws. The third one says agricultural surface draws, which do require a permit, where there is remaining stability, do not need to satisfy reasonable use criteria. So, yeah, the intent of our bullet was to address that, or intent of our recommendation was to address that third bullet and require reasonable use criteria for new agricultural surface water registrations.
I might be in a minority, right? Like I said, I'd like full, and I don't know how I missed it. Maybe I was just kind of along with the ride. And I know it's a bit of a contentious topic, but I believe in equitability, so to speak, and what is applied to one should be applied to all, regardless of new or existing. That's just kind of how I feel. I might get outvoted on that one.
At the final hour, I believe, now the man in talking about sustenance fishing, that's something we hadn't even talked about, didn't even think about it. But on this, yes, I do remember quite a bit of conversation about this, and we've had to review this for 2 years, and we've been going through this, and it was a long conversation. And no, everybody we can talk. Well, Jill, you and I and Daniel, we had a nice conversation after the public meeting. But we got other people looking at this in the state, and we done gone through this and reviewed this. Yeah, I'm gonna see something on paper. I'm tactile. I'm not going by just, well, let's talk about this and see what they want. I mean, well, ain't no need to replow this ground, in my opinion. No pun intended, because I got the plow in my picture.
So you want to just leave it as it is what you're saying? And with
Well,
with the
I thought
requiring.
I
Okay.
thought that's what we had done. We'd done reviewed all this, and that was yes. And obviously, Daniel and I have looked at this because that's what our component is. We're supposed to be watching. Daniel, what do you think? Didn't you and I review this pretty close?
I'm gonna have to agree with Mac. I won't be able to make any quick change to it today or anytime soon. It would have to be a good sit down meeting for us to have a verbal discussion on this.
Okay, I'll leave it to the whole. That's fine. Like I said, I moment to pause as I was reading it. I guess it can get captured under our recommendation somewhere later on that improves the laws to which might, what is this? Okay, maybe it's covered in the next bullet, which is saying that improve the current laws. This is what I'm trying to state.
Yeah, well, the specific recommendation on reasonable use is kind of standalone. The next bullet about improve the current laws to be enforceable and effective had to do more with grandfathering.
Which is where I kind of paused. All right, because I apologize. I was just reading that during the public meeting. I'm like, oh, and I had kind of had the same moment as Mac is the, oh my gosh, this is the ag again. And and anyway, that's fine. If you all are as agriculture representatives are good with it and it's captured what my concern majorly was is captured in the next bullet. I'm good with leaving it as it is, as long as you all are.
Well, I think one thing we talked about in that last bullet, approving of the state water plan, enhance and all that. I think some of that, my motivation behind that is look at, we got your water SC. I mean, we got a lot of other things that some of our stuff may be kind of moot if they decided to do something else. So, I mean, for us to stand there as a basin, and when you got that group doesn't come in at the final hour, then let's see what they're going to say.
Mac, if I have my way, all of what comes out of this river basin councils and statewide is how Water SC is going to act. That is, we've been working too hard, too long, too many efforts, too many brains for that room to all of a sudden take us in a different direction. If my message is heard, that's what hopefully the water plan will turn out to be comprised of.
Let me ask a question, and I guess John, probably to you or Tom, is our recommendation consistent with the other River Basin Planning Commission's recommendations on this topic?
It is, except for that word new, but to be honest, the other RBCs never got into discussion to distinguish between existing and new. It just wasn't even a thought. So not to say that if we had that discussion, some of them may have said, well, we think it only should apply to new and we should grandfather all existing registrations so that they don't have to meet reasonable use criteria. It just never came up. It was more of a discussion on reasonable use criteria. And the implication was probably, and I don't want to say this for certain, but the implication during the discussions was probably that it would just apply to registrations going forward, AKA new registrations. But again, we never specifically had discussions in the other RBCs.
That spurs another question for me back to Jill. Sorry, Chairman. But if all the river basin commissions are not consistent in this recommendation, what are you going to take to the Water SC group?
Right, so that is the basic intent is those that are viewed or found statewide to be recommendations are honestly probably ones that are more likely that are going to make it into the overall state plan. And those that are unique to a basin will be looked to be managed more on a local, regional level, if indeed it can be. So some consistency, or at least going down the same road is desirable. That being said, I can only presume here, I'm not in charge of that group. I'm just a participant, but I could only presume that if we've got some varying recommendations, but yet are on the same topic, headed in the same direction, that we would review those recommendations, individually and try to come up with a, some sort of, I don't know if compromise is the right word, but some sort of consistency that pulls from all and reaches the goal of which the majority of the recommendations were headed. But that's my presumption. I can't say that's actually what's going to happen. We're kind of building that plane, that water SC, on how it's operating as we're flying, unfortunately. So I'm just presuming that's what's going to happen.
Well, John brings up a good point, and Mark, I like what what you said is right. I mean, consistency. But John, I like what you said. When we get into this, sometimes you get into semantics. Is it a weed eater or a line trimmer? So yeah, I think you may want to listen to some of what we're saying. Everybody don't say it the same way, but the intent would be the same, maybe.
Yeah, well, particularly on this issue, and I won't speak for DES, but will they be willing to have different regs around surface water withdrawal permitting by river basin? Or are they going to have one statewide reg? I think that'll be the discussion and the debate, in my humble opinion.
Okay, I'm gonna take back over the share if I can, Jill.
Oh, here.
And we'll move on to public and agency comment. I don't know that we have any members of the public on, but any agency members like to make comment before we move on to reviewing responses and comments? Okay, last night I circulated the document that I'm sharing now on the screen, which is going to be Appendix D of the plan, public comments and responses. We received one set of comments from Terry Jackson of the Lake Hartwell Association. They had a number of members in attendance at the meeting, and then they followed that up with some emailed comments. I will say they also submitted a letter of support, which we will include in Appendix D probably. Here's the letter of support. Basically just says that the Lake Hartwell Association appreciates the work that you all did and is supporting the Upper Savannah River Basin plan. So nice to have that. We'll include that in there. But let's review their comments and our draft responses, and want to make sure the RBC is comfortable with the draft responses. The first one had to do with distinction between upper and lower Savannah Basin and reported demands. And I think Tom addressed that comment during the meeting. Terry followed up with another comment, which was this one on private lawn irrigation. His question was, how significant of an impact, percentage terms, is that on water use, current and forecasted? Apparently they get that question a lot. So we've drafted a response here. I don't want to read it all, but hopefully it addresses their comment. Anybody have any suggestions on that draft response, or do you think it adequately addresses their comment?
I think it adequately addresses the comment. I would just mention, I don't think it's significant, but on Lake Thurman, especially on the Georgia side, they are actually allowed to take irrigation water out of the lake. Now, most of the ones on the South Carolina side, you're required to do it out of public water. So there are some use out of there, but I doubt very much whether it would probably only in a fraction of a 1% or something. Right. But there are people that are legally permitted to take irrigation water out of the lake, Lake Thurman.
Thurman, okay. Anybody else have any comments or suggestions on the response? Comfortable with it?
I'm comfortable with it as written.
Okay. Okay. They also had a comment about, or a question on evaporation. How is evaporation considered? How significant of an impact is it on water use, both current and forecasted? They also hear that question a lot. So we've included in a response, using Lake Hartwell as the example, some actual specific numbers from the model, which is basically suggesting that over the period of record that we used from 1939 to 2021, evaporation averages, and varies significantly, but it averages about 157 million gallons per day. That's a little under 0.1 inches per day when the lake's at full pool, but the lake varies a lot, so it could be lower than that at different times. We've compared that then to the average total withdrawal from the lake, which is only currently 29 million gallons per day. So, evaporation is certainly significant compared to withdrawal, but it's also much lower than inflow.
Hey,
Any
John,
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
this guy, we discussed this a couple weeks ago, I think. And the evaporation, it was based on, temperature data and pan data. So just to be more precise there, she said it's based on nearby measured temperature and pan data. It wasn't just the pan.
Yeah, good point. Yep, so I've added that in.
Thank
I
you.
think years ago, the Corps had some data on evaporation for the total lake. I don't spend so many years. It was something like 15 or 1600 cubic feet per second. It averaged on a hot day. This was Thurman and Hartwell.
Mm.
But again, it's I think the answer is valid.
Okay. All right, and then the next comment was a request to specifically mention a couple of the big activities downstream that were or were not addressed in the demands. So they pointed to a couple examples, including the new Hyundai plant down in Savannah, Augusta area, maybe a 5th nuclear reactor at the Vogtle power plant. Or what if mothballed coal plants came back online? So we've crafted a response to address that question. Just basically says the new Hyundai plant, which is in the lower Savannah Basin, is not explicitly included in our projected bands because we don't know what their withdrawals amount will be. We didn't really know the specifics on their location, kind of know a proposed location, but we acknowledge that that wasn't included, but that would have little to no impact on the upper Savannah Basin. And then the second paragraph here does mention that the Vogtle plant has a significant increase in demands for our projections. So that's included. I've added in a statement about the just recently announced new natural gas plant in Anderson County. And then we wrap up the response by basically saying that, all of these potential changes in energy demands could and should be evaluated as part of future RBC planning. So the intent would be in future iterations of your plan to review these demand projections, especially things like this new Duke plant, and evaluate whether there'd be any impact. Everyone comfortable with that response?
Yeah, I certainly am.
Good.
I think the issue Duke has had in the past with coal ash contamination and whatnot, I doubt they'd ever bring a coal plant back online.
What coal plants are there in the upper Savannah?
I'm not sure there are any anymore.
I don't know of
I'm
any.
not aware of any.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any either.
I don't know why they're asking this question.
I think it might be a more general question from a nationwide thing. I don't think it impacts the upper Savannah Basin at all.
I agree.
Yeah, I think you're right, Harry. It's probably more of a general question, given the current
What
administration's
what
push
basin
towards
is
coal.
Plant Vogtle in the Savannah Basin?
It's in the lower Savannah.
Lower
Lower
Savannah.
Savannah.
Okay, so that doesn't have any,
I'd be like, given the birthing process they went through to bring on the last nuclear reactor, I would wonder if they'd ever go through that, given the billions of dollar overrun and the years of time.
well, Harry, I have to ask you, have you ever known of a situation where political forces made a bad decision?
Yeah. How about our nuclear plant in South Carolina that everybody was getting rebates for a while?
There's going to be a good book on that someday.
Well, I think the future of nuclear is small nuclear, which don't have the water cooling issues. So I think we'll probably see more nuclear, but not the big guys.
All right, so those are the 4 comments that we received and the responses. We have not made any adjustments to the plan itself as a result of these comments and responses. We've just simply answered them here. If y'all think it's appropriate, we could, like in the demands chapter 4, we could add some notes to indicate what was and what wasn't included, like the Hyundai plant. Again, that's not in the upper Savannah, that's in the lower Savannah. As of now, I don't know that that's necessary, but if y'all feel we should clarify and add some language to chapter 4, then we can.
Or John, can y'all take this comment to the lower Basin Commission and have them included there?
Yeah, we can do that, certainly, yeah.
Wouldn't that be better? Would it be better to let them have that and then us leave it in the appendix or whatever what are you calling this section? That way it will be in ours, but it won't be have to worry about changing the plan.
It's not a big deal to go in and update our plan, but yeah, I kind of like the idea of keeping it in the appendix here, and then we'll make sure that it's acknowledged in the demands chapter of the lower Savannah.
Hey, John,
Yeah, Scott.
can you scroll back down to that second red paragraph? The second sentence, it said modeling did account for growth of 95% at Vogel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall having that assumption. Is that something Georgia has included in their water demand projections, or is that something we added in?
No, I believe that's included in Georgia's water demand projection.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
All right. Thank you. All right.
That was theirs.
That's all.
Okay. So in the final plan, we will include this new Appendix D that includes the comments and responses. Let me go back. Presentation slide. One thing I should have added a special agenda item for this, but I didn't. But I want to make sure, want to make sure you're all still comfortable. You know, we did the test of consensus on the draft plan and y'all voted and gave it, you know, full endorsement or near full endorsement, 1s or 2s. Technically, when we put together the final plan and issue it, we need to include whether you all support it or do not support the plan. My assumption, since everybody voted a 1 or a 2 to endorse the draft plan and there's been no substantial changes, that y'all support the final plan. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. That'll be reflected at the end of chapter 10 and also in one of the appendices where we include a table that looks like this table here. Okay, the only other item then we wanted to talk about would be a discussion of the RBC role and activities moving forward. And Jill, you had asked to have this on the agenda, so I think I'll turn it over to you and let you kind of introduce the topic and your thoughts on it.
I did, because as chair, I guess I feel responsible for what we're doing and how we're continuing forward. And John, what's your, and I guess I don't even understand what the future currently is of our facilitation, how long your assistance and Tom assistance lasts at this current point. And it was really, I was moved to ask this question based on that public meeting where One of the Lake Hartwell representatives asked if we could write a letter of support for, gosh, what was going on? Was it a riparian buffer? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was a buffer.
Okay, right, the countywide riparian buffer maybe. And that's something that I personally support, and it's something that we're supporting in our recommendations. However, I don't feel like I've got the jurisdiction, authority, what have you, just to craft this letter and slap my name on it and send it out.
It already passed.
Okay, right. That's spectacular. Thank you, John, for filling us in there. Regardless of its outcome, if we're going to exist moving forward and be visible, I would imagine other people might approach us for support or letters of recommendation or to partner or what have you. And I just kind of wanted to have an idea of how we're going to continue forward. Do we meet at all, meet periodically? I know recommendations in this report was for the RBCs to be maintained. That was the intent of the creation thereof. But with, you know, new people in new places, I'm not exactly sure. And I was just trying to figure out how to operate in the meantime.
I guess I would divert the question to DES. And I think they're still trying to decide how things will work in the future and maybe relying a little bit on input from Water SC as well. As far as our contract, you know, we're wrapping up the plan and we've done, I think this is the 20th meeting. There's a little bit of budget left in our contract that we could facilitate another meeting or two if needed, if y'all want to meet. I can't speak on Tom's behalf necessarily, but certainly going forward into 2026, if you want a facilitator, you'd have to figure out how that would work. Is there money to hire someone like me, a consultant, to facilitate? Could you do it on your own? Could DES handle it? I think those are all probably discussions that DES may be having later in the year, and probably related to budget availability for water planning too. But that's about as much as I'm aware of right now. And I don't know if Joe has anything he wants to add to that.
Yeah, sure. You know, I think it is a bit of an unknown. Obviously, we have the Santee Basin to wrap up and to continue our monthly meetings with Water SC and to, you know, draft a state water plan. And, you know, I think it's our hope to clarify some of these type questions throughout that process and let the state water plan maybe speak to what it looks like moving into next year and beyond. It's not clear at this time. You know, there is some funding available to move forward. How that exactly looks, I think hopefully we'll have some clarification towards the end of the year.
Okay, thank you, Joe. I know intent is because implementation happens on a local level. I know there are statewide recommendations, both in our plan and other RBC plans. However, you know, my outlook is the majority of the work's going to be done not necessarily by us, but through us in some way, by managing partners on the ground, applying for grants, those types of things to do implementation, and maybe even on a regional basis between ourselves and the Salute and the Broad, since it's a bit of an upstate. And I did propose, and will continue to, with the two chairs of the Broad and the Saluda, to come together as a larger group and have a discussion of the similarities of our recommendations and see what we can do as a larger entity as well sometime in the fall. John, that might be way outside of where you all are involved, but it is something that I've asked of the other chairs and would assume would expand the involvement to all RBC members of those three groups when we finally do pull ourselves together there.
All right, any other comments from the RBC? Questions about moving forward? Okay, that's everything we wanted to cover today. we've got a couple action items, or at least Mark has an action item. He's going to follow up with McCormick County, and if they want to formally submit a comment, we can add that to Appendix D and draft a quick response to that. If we do get a comment and we draft a response, I'll probably circulate that just via email to the RBC and do a quick read of it, make sure you're okay with it. Otherwise, we're going to move forward just to prepare the final River Basin plan, which won't be much of a lift. There was little to no changes. We'll prepare the final executive summary. We'll have that 2-page summary sheet. All of that will get posted to DES website where we have our Upper Savannah River Basin planning page. That's about it for now. Again, I want to thank everybody for their 2-year contribution to this and appreciate everything that y'all have done to make this a successful plan. Jill, do you want to close us down?
Thank you all for all your participation. I've really enjoyed it. Most of all, I've enjoyed the, building these professional relationships. It's what makes things happen, and what makes my job worthwhile. So I appreciate your efforts. I look forward to working with you all, hopefully further. I think as far as I'm concerned, the job's just begun and it's not finishing up. So I thank you in advance for what we're going to do moving forward to take this plan out of a recommendation stage and bring it to an implementation stage, and have some real results on the grounds that we can be proud of. So I'm proud of you all. I'm proud of myself, and I'm really hoping that we've got some great activities that move forward out of this.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.